Good afternoon. Today I know that we will all walk away from this interactive learning adventure with new skills and insights that will change forever how we communicate in business. Good afternoon, I'm Scudder Fowler, CEO of Liminal Group, and I would like to welcome you to the Articulate Executive. Now it's my pleasure to introduce you to a man who has coached over 2/3 of the Fortune 500 CEOs. He's written 4 best-selling books. He's a former Today Show news producer. And he's a fantastic communicator himself. Please help me welcome Granville Toogood.
Thank you, Scudder. Are we on? Well, I'm glad to see you all managed to make it in one piece, because I was talking to a very nice man a few minutes ago who was on his way in the cab from the airport, and the cab had a crash, and he got bloodied, and he was a wreck, but he had the grit to come here today, and he's in here somewhere. Would you raise your hand? I love this guy. Here he is. Let's hear it for this man. True grit. True grit. Well, I hope there's no more blood in the auditorium at the end of the day, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, look, the mission is very, very simple. The objective that we have to do here today is very simple. I simply want to arm you with a bunch of fun little things that you can do to be really much better, arguably, than you are right now, even if you think you're as good as it gets. That's the whole idea. I want to help you position yourselves as leaders in your industries, and it's all based on a simple idea. The simple idea is that 3 minutes, as you may have heard me say a minute ago, with the right audience can be worth a year at your desk. That's a lesson in life. And the other thing is, the other part of it is, that brain power and skills and talent all by themselves and by themselves alone will not necessarily guarantee success. What you need for that is this, what we're going to do today. You need this thing. And to help me show you how this works, we've got a few intrepid volunteers. They have no idea what they're getting into, but they're here, and I admire their grit, because they're going to come up here and they don't know me, I don't know them, and they're going to subject themselves to some scrutiny, and you're going to help me. And our first volunteer, you will confirm that you are a volunteer. He did volunteer. Nobody put a gun up his nose. Our first volunteer is Stormy Dean. Isn't that a wonderful name? Stormy Dean. I'll tell you a little bit more about Stormy. Stormy's EVP at Data Sales Group. Is that correct, Stormy? Would you come up here and join me for a minute? Let's hear for Stormy Dean. Do you want to work at the lectern? Is that
no, I'm going to wander around.
Good. I've been wandering around for years. It hasn't done me any good
Hopefully
at all.
I'll be able to find
Okay, so the stage is yours. Now let me ask you if you would be kind enough to tell the people what you want them to walk out of here with, and tell them why you're talking to them and who they are. And is this a real life thing that you might do?
Okay, it is. And so
what's your objective?
My objective actually is to tell you a story about how infoGROUP, of which I'm the database sales general manager, EVP, tell you that story about how we got to where we are today, and then get some help on how do I explain it to people, right? Because what happened is I had a conversation. I've known Scudder for a couple of years. He's been trying to get me to do some things, and he called me up in May, and he asked me to come out, or he asked me to do an interview. And so I said, well, why don't you come out here to Omaha and see what we do, right? So I brought him out to Omaha, and we put on a dog and pony show like no other. I think we knocked his socks off, right? We did really well. And then I told what I call my Info 101 story. How we got started, why we do what we do the way we do it, and where we are today. And it took me about an hour and a half. Well, it's a good story, right? But to your point, in 3 minutes, I think we have a really difficult time company-wide, not just me, but anybody in the company to try and distill down what does infoGROUP do. What are you all about? I'm ready to go.
Ready to go?
Yeah.
And in real life, what would we be doing now? Would we be in a conference room? Would we be sitting at a round table? Would you be on a stage? How would it work?
It could be any of that. You know,
Okay.
I've actually given this kind of presentation to bankers, to investment community. I've given sort of the same presentation, you know, at a large venue.
And what's the objective of the presentation?
Well, often the objective of the presentation is really to talk about what infoGROUP does.
Okay.
And so,
To what end?
so that people can understand, you know, for the investors,
Yeah.
if they've got a simple...
Okay, so is this an investment pitch we're about to hear?
No.
Okay, what is it?
This is going to be this is a pitch to you all so that I can give, this is going to be an elevator pitch, really, eventually.
Okay, good,
I hope so.
good. So when you're ready, we'll begin as if it were real.
Okay.
Okay? When you're ready, go.
Okay, so what I start with is in the beginning. And in 1972, our founder started this company out of his garage. It was sort of out of necessity. He was a recent graduate from the University of Nebraska at Omaha. He was in Lincoln. He was a graduate from IIT in India who came over here, got his MBA, and he had entered into a failed business venture, and he went to work for a small company in Omaha, Nebraska that manufactured mobile homes. His boss came to him one day and says, "Gupta, I need a list of all the people or businesses in the country that sell mobile homes." It's 1972. No such list exists. So what he does is he thinks about, how can I get that list? And so what he did is he called the telephone company. And in those days, it was still a monopoly, AT&T. He calls up and he says, "Can I get all the business directories or all the Yellow Page directories for every phone book in the country?" They said, "No, you could, but it'll cost you a lot of money." He said, "I don't have any money in my budget to do that, so I'm not going to do it." So a couple weeks later, AT&T calls him back and says, "Well, Mr. Gupta, your company has," in those days we called them Watts lines, you know, the precursor to 800 numbers. "You've got Watts lines, and so because you have a Watts line, you can get all the telephone books in the country." He said, "Send them, great, send them." So they send them, and so a semi pulls up a couple weeks later and unloads all these phone books, you know, like 4,500, 5,000 phone books. And his boss comes in, they put him in this office about the size of this stage, and they say to him, you know, "Well, here you go, Gupta, what are you going to do with these now?" And his boss comes in, starts hollering at him, you know, "You can't have all these phone books in here." So Vin makes a decision on the spot. He says, "I'll take those books home with me, but I'll give you access to the data that I get out of them, but I get to keep it. This is not subject to work product." So he takes those phone books home, and he does a little pre-mailing, a little pre-market test, and people actually send him money for his list before he has a list. So now he's forced into building a list, right? So him and his wife and his friends, they literally go through the phone books page by page by page by page and compile a list by hand and send it out, get some money. And they just keep doing that. They keep expanding, you know, SIC code by SIC code, location by location, until finally, in 1987, they had now compiled the complete Yellow Pages. They had all the compilation in there. So now there's a process in place for a new book comes out, you do a new process, you update the database, and then by 1989, they started telephone verifying the data, which meant that now it's got a characteristic that nobody else has. This business data of 15 million businesses in the US and Canada has something that nobody else has. You've actually talked to a person at that business. Then you've asked them questions like, "Is this still your business? How many employees do you have? You know, how big are you? Where are you located? What's the contact name? What are your hours of operation?" Those kind of things. It was a differentiating factor. So all this goes along for a while, and you know, this is a great business, right? You get to have a list, you can sell it, keep the list, sell it again, keep doing that back and forth, until finally, you know, the realization becomes that this thing makes so much money that we've got to find a way, or Mr. Gupta decided he needed to find a way to take it to the next level. So in 1992, he took the company public.